Breaking news. Someone awesome is watching this video. It's you! Subscribe and let's make history together. Time to begin. For 8 years, Margaret and I lived a life that many would describe as stable and predictable. We were not the kind of couple that argued in public or celebrated anniversaries with grand declarations on social media. We dutifully paid our bills, spent our Sundays on home repairs, and exchanged "love you" as casually as one says, "see you." Nothing unusual, nothing shattered, just a steady cadence of life. But recently, the silence between us shifted. It was not the serene quiet of the past, but rather an emptiness. That night, the stillness broke for good. As she stood near the hallway mirror adjusting her earrings, I quietly urged, "I wish you wouldn't go tonight." Margaret responded with a laugh, short, sharp, and cutting. "Greg, it's a work event. You know how these things go," she replied. "Not attending just makes people gossip. I only need to make an appearance," she explained, retrieving a silver clutch I hadn't seen before. She wore coral lipstick, a shade brighter than her usual preferences, seemingly too deliberate for an office gathering. I said nothing more, simply nodding while standing near the kitchen island, observing her reflection. "Don't wait up," she instructed, her tone lacking lightheartedness. It was more of a release than a suggestion. When she left, the silence that enveloped the room was dense and oppressive. The clock moved past midnight, yet I remained seated. In my mind, I tried to envision what an office party could possibly resemble in the early hours. My imagination painted scenes of laughter and dim lighting. She returned at 3:07 a.m., her car's headlights slicing through the blinds. Pretending to sleep, I lay in the darkened bedroom. She opened the front door gently, her footsteps soft on the tiles. She went directly to the guest bathroom, bypassing the one we shared, and I heard the water running for an extended time. I patiently waited, listening until the sound stopped, then detected the closet door creaking open. When she finally slipped into the bedroom, she whispered, "You're still awake?" I responded evenly, "Just dozed off." She smiled faintly in the shadows. "Go to sleep, Greg," she murmured, turning away to lie beside me, still dressed in one of my old shirts. I could smell her freshly washed hair. The following morning, Margaret appeared in the kitchen donning a gray hoodie I didn't recognize, conspicuously missing her wedding ring. Though I noticed immediately, I chose not to comment. She poured her coffee, avoiding eye contact, and inquired, "Are you working from home today?" I replied absent-mindedly, "Thinking about it." My words lacked emotion. "How was the party?" I ventured. She merely shrugged, saying, "Loud. Boring." Her words clipped and indifferent. She offered no elaborations about coworkers, music, or food, merely ending the conversation. She placed a cursory kiss on my cheek, mentioned she was late, and departed before I could say more. After she left for work, while clearing the kitchen table, I discovered a folded valet ticket that must have fallen from her bag. It was from the Lakeside Meridian Hotel, a fresh imprint. I decided to put it back and proceeded to clean the counter as if nothing had changed. I didn't address the matter that day, or even the day after. Silence had become its own pattern, and I learned to align with it. Margaret's supposed client dinners became more frequent. Her phone was consistently face down, and she stepped outside to take calls about logistics. I maintained a neutral demeanor, and as I acted more nonchalant, her own vigilance waned. One evening, while she showered, her phone screen illuminated with a message. "Same place." There was no name attached, just a heart emoji. I noted the time, 9:22 p.m. The next day, I sought out Mark, a college friend whose profession in accounting made him a man of few but precise words. Upon hearing my story, he listened thoughtfully and then offered advice characteristic of someone who sees the world in figures. In his calm way, he suggested, "Don't rush to conclusions. If deceit existed, Margaret would likely have a narrative ready. The truth, he stressed, lay in the tangible evidence. Numbers are unwavering, he reminded me, a contrast to the fallibility of people. Taking his advice to heart, I began to observe. Every Thursday, she withdrew $200 from an ATM near the Lakeside Meridian Hotel. Her receipts showed inconsistencies. Her calendar listed meetings that were non-existent. At home, I created a dossier on my computer, encrypted under an innocuous title she would overlook, Mortgage Docs 2018. Inside, I carefully compiled images of receipts, timestamps, travel app logs, and notes devoid of emotions, just the facts. One Friday, when she declared she was off to another client dinner, I decided to investigate further. I inquired, "Will you need a ride later?" Her response was a laugh, as if I had shared a humorous thought. "Don't wait, Greg. I might stay over at Lisa's." Lisa's place was nearby, just 2 blocks away. I was aware that she wasn't really planning to head there, but I merely nodded. As the door shut, I watched her car's taillights vanish down the street. This time I felt empowered. I had stopped merely guessing and begun assembling pieces of the truth. It unfolded one Sunday morning around 9 o'clock. Margaret was hastily preparing for brunch with colleagues. Her laptop was open on the dining table, and she left the room to locate her earrings. I hadn't intended to snoop, but something unmistakable caught my eye, a tab blinking in orange. The logo on the app was a circle enclosing a padlock, something unfamiliar to me. Driven by a curiosity that was no longer innocent but necessary, I moved the cursor. The screen revealed an ongoing conversation. The name at the top read, Zane. The messages dated back weeks, oftentimes sent late at night, well past midnight. Phrases like, "Can't stop thinking about last time," and "Sweet 804 again," were starkly clear. One particular photo arrested me. Margaret's wrist laid on a white comforter, wearing a bracelet I had never seen, shining under hotel lights. There was no need to scroll further. I quickly snapped a few photos with my phone and returned the laptop to its prior state. My heartbeat remained stable, yet my hands were icy. Upon her return, she seemed oblivious. "Have you seen my sunglasses?" she asked while adjusting her hair in the mirror. "Next to your keys," I pointed at the counter. She smiled absently. "You're a lifesaver." I nodded as she leaned in, kissed my cheek, and said as always before leaving, "Do something fun today," before closing the door behind her. There it was, undeniable proof, no longer a mere theory or suspicion. Proof that the woman who used to sleep on my shoulder had become so entangled in her web of lies that she couldn't recall which ones she'd woven. That morning, rather than feeling betrayed, I experienced a quiet calm, the kind that comes when all speculation is finally laid to rest. By Monday, I was resolute in my course of action. I drove to the Lakeside Meridian Hotel, parked discreetly across the street, and walked in, exuding the composure of someone who belonged. Approaching the front desk, I claimed to have left a cufflink in a room reserved by a colleague. "Suite 804, I mentioned casually. The clerk's lack of surprise was telling. "Oh, Mr. Zane's suite? He's a regular here." The words landed with a significant weight. Returning home, I dug deeper into the identity of Zane Malikson, a project manager at the same company where Margaret worked, unmarried, according to his public profiles. Yet further investigation revealed photos of him with a woman, Emma Torres, attending engagement events. Her professional site portrayed her as confident and adept, yet unaware of reality. That evening, I drafted a short message to Emma. "Hi, Emma. I'm uncertain how to begin this. I believe your fiancé, Zane, is involved with my wife, Margaret. I have evidence but wish to handle this discreetly. If you'd like to meet to confirm, I can bring what I have. Greg." Pausing before sending, I hesitated, then pressed send. Her reply came within an hour. "Tomorrow, 6 p.m., Café Bluestone. Please be straightforward." The following day, upon arrival, she was already there. composed and on guard. I presented the screenshots, the hotel slip, and the photograph. Her jaw tightened, yet she didn't shed tears. After a moment of silence, she asked, "What will you do?" "I'm not sure yet," I replied, "but I'm finished pretending." She released a slight, bitter laugh, exhaling deeply. "Then let's both stop pretending." We parted ways, leaving the cafe separately, and I did not glance back. Being right offered no sense of triumph, merely a resolute understanding. From now on, my actions would be intentional. Thursday arrived like any other. Margaret mentioned an evening engagement with clients on the west side. 10 minutes after her departure, I followed her, just distant enough to maintain a view of her taillights. She drove across town, past the river, and headed toward the Lakeside Meridian Hotel. My stomach clenched as she entered, no hesitation, no backward glance. She handed her keys to the valet, checked her phone, and smiled in response to whatever was on the screen. Moments later, the lobby doors once again opened. A man emerged, in his mid-30s, neatly dressed, possessing an effortless confidence. No need to zoom in. His identity was clear. It was Zane. He greeted her with a familiar touch on her back and a kiss that lacked urgency. I lifted my phone, snapped a quick picture, and put it away. That was sufficient. I had no desire to enter with them. I was already aware of what awaited me upstairs. Returning home, everything was untouched, just as she'd left it. I filled a glass with water, sat down at the table, and opened my laptop to a blank document. I didn't pen a letter or threat. Instead, I prepared separation documents. They were straightforward and factual, devoid of emotion. I called Mark to look over the details. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I'm not ending anything," I replied. "She did. I'm just giving it a title." That night, I experienced the first restful sleep in weeks. On Saturday morning, I told Margaret we had breakfast plans. "With whom?" she questioned while pouring coffee. "Just some colleagues from work. Potential contract discussion," I said. She merely nodded, mentioning she'd join me without probing further. She looked particularly crisp that morning in a white blouse with her hair neatly done. I had already arranged the meeting at Cafe Meridian, across from the hotel she thought I'd never find out about. Arriving early, I placed 2 folders on the table, marked financials and personal. When Margaret arrived, she smiled, kissed my cheek, and began browsing her phone. Moments later, Emma Torres entered. Margaret went rigid, her grip tightening on the coffee cup. I watched as realization dawned on her slowly. "Greg?" she murmured, confused. "What's happening?" Before I could answer, Zane appeared at the entrance. His gaze met mine, then Emma's, and finally Margaret's. His complexion turned ashen, like a drain on his color. I leaned back, keeping my demeanor composed and steady. "You all know each other, right?" Silence engulfed us. I placed my phone on the table, displaying the photo of her and Zane outside the hotel. Margaret's voice quavered. "You followed me?" "I confirmed what was already evident," I replied. Zane tried to speak, but Emma's glare silenced him, conveying everything unspoken. I slid the paperwork across the table. "Separation papers. Straightforward terms. I want nothing but space." Margaret's voice wavered. "Greg, please, let's have a conversation." "There's nothing left to say," I responded. "I tried to stop you before, but you went to the event anyway. This time there's no return." I stood and left without any shouting or drama, just the sound of a chair being pushed back as her last effort to follow. She stayed put. The divorce proceeded quicker than I'd anticipated. No courtroom battles, no yelling attorneys. Margaret signed the papers within a week, perhaps out of remorse or weariness. We divided the house. I kept the car while she retained the furniture. It was a business-like split, quiet like how we'd ceased communicating long before it ended. A month later, I relocated to a small apartment by the lake. 2 rooms, a creaky floorboard, a view of ever-changing waters. Mark assisted me in setting up new banking accounts, closing the joint ones, and moving on. After Emma exposed Zane during a company event, he lost his job, and the news traveled swiftly. Margaret attempted to move in with him temporarily, but it dissolved when both his charm and finances dried up. Twice she called. I didn't answer. On the third attempt, she left a voicemail. "Greg, I'm sorry. Things with Zane, they didn't work out. He lied to me." I erased the message without a second thought. Later, Emma texted, unrelated to Zane, simply notifying me of her fresh start. "You'll feel lighter soon," she assured. And she was right. Margaret sent me an email later, rambling about mistakes, regret, and missing our former silences. I did not respond. Back then, the silence had been mutual. Now it was solely mine. I started taking morning runs, each sound replacing the old silence with something purer. One evening, I stumbled upon a photo of us by the lake, her hand resting on my arm, both laughing at a forgotten jest. I lingered over it, then shut it in a drawer. I poured a drink, stepped onto the balcony. There, no footsteps, no perfume, no deception, just silence. Steady, constant, mine.